Welcome to Solo Travel TV. This is Yogita Ridgley. I am the CEO and the founder of Traveling with Me, Myself and I. And today I have a beautiful lady who is joining us, and she will be sharing her story of solo traveling with us. And I would like you to welcome Maria. How are you?
Hello, Yogita. I'm very well, thank you. Hello from Italy, everyone. That country you're told not to go to for a while.
Yeah, so isn't it technology amazing? We can do this from far and still bring everything so close, isn't it? So
Indeed.
we'll start off with Maria. Just you telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and your little story.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I am Italian, but you can probably tell from my accent that I lived in the UK for a while, a long time actually. I was born in Italy, but then my parents emigrated to the UK when I was 5, so I went to school in the UK and everything. And then I studied languages at university. And then after that, a London University and the Sorbonne in Paris. And then after that, I started my career, long career, still going on in travel. I got married late when I was 43. So at that time, I decided it was too late to have a family. But my husband was a widower. So he has a daughter with her husband and 3 beautiful children who are my grandkids. So I skipped the parenting, but I still get to have the pleasures of grandma. And so yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm a tour guide for Trafalgar.
Excellent. I am so excited to hear all your stories. And I have to admit, I think it sounds like you are super independent to get married at 40 or in 40s, I should say. So tell me all about what you started on your solo travel journey.
Well, you see, it was never an issue. In the sense that it was quite normal for anyone studying languages. I remember living in Europe, we could travel just a few hours and would be in another country with a different language and culture. So as a language student, it was quite normal to go off on your own to perfect one's language. In fact, the first time I went to Paris, I was 17. I went on my own. I did a course for a month in French. Then stayed another month wandering around Paris and so on. So it was almost as if it were normal to do that in those times. And I think, one didn't really worry too much about one's safety, but I don't know whether it's because I was young and naive or whether it was safer. And there was never really an issue of safety.
Yeah, I think also back in those days, it was a lot more safer place as well, I think. And I think a 17-year-old was much more wiser back in those days than a 17-year-old is now, which is quite, I think it kind of reflects on the parents, like our parenting, because I feel like my 15-year-old is not as matured as I was when I was a 15-year-old, because I was given too much responsibilities, and as a mother I don't give enough responsibilities to my daughter. So I think that kind of makes sense that you would as a 17-year-old be traveling alone in Paris and still be confident enough to know your way around. So what was one of
Yeah, I mean, I had very strict parents, but they didn't let me go to parties or anything. But anything to do with studies, it was okay. So yes, you could go to Paris for 2 months, but when you go home, you can't go to a party. But they still instilled a certain amount of responsibility.
Yeah, I think the parenting style was different. And I have to admit, I am still kind of like old school. I do like the idea of how my parents did things. And one of the reasons that I love solo traveling so much is because when you're on the road, like as a 17-year-old or at any age, you tend to learn a lot about who you are as well. Like what kind of a person you are, what kind of things you like. So was there anything that you learned as a 17-year-old, and then again on a next journey that kind of like went like, okay, this is the kind of person I am, or this is what I do like, and this is what I don't like?
Oh, I think it was the freedom of meeting with people and spending time with them, engaging one's own reactions by the experiences that one has. And so by your reactions, you actually, to certain situations and experiences, it's when you start to get to know yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so right in what you're saying. With one of the things that I always ask people when I meet them for the first time is, what is one thing that I really love about solo traveling? What would you?
Oh, for me, freedom, because I'm very very independent, and I mean, even now I travel with my husband, but I still do some solo traveling as well. It's the independence, the freedom to do what you want to do, when you want to do it. It's not having to take into consideration the other person, you know, what they would like to do and so on. And so that, for me, that's the most important element, the freedom of doing what you want to do when you want to do it. I mean, it sounds selfish, but it's a very important point.
Yeah, to be totally honest, I agree with you. I think freedom is extremely important, and it should be very important for any individual. And I don't believe it is selfish. I know it sounds selfish when you put it in a picture of a family and everyone else, but I think when it comes down to you actually allowing yourself time to have that freedom makes you a better person. So when you're with your family and your friends, then you are a lot more alive and yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Of what you're saying, yes. I mean, also you can impart so much more to people if you have spent time on your own. People who are afraid to be on their own, it's almost as if they've not developed their personality and they've been afraid to develop their personality. You know, the more time you spend on your own and the more experiences you have on your own, the more you have actually to give to other people.
That's absolutely correct. I love what you said. Just, that people who are really scared to be on their own, they haven't found their voice yet. They haven't found themselves yet. And once you do find yourself, whether it is a confident person or a quiet person or a shy person or an outspoken person, it doesn't matter. Once you found that, then you tend to impart more of who you are with other people and share your knowledges and experiences with everybody. I know you've traveled quite a lot of different countries, and we can probably do a whole series on just your travel story. But with all the traveling, I would probably have to do that. I have been following your travel journey for a long time, and I just love the stories and the photos that you share all the time. So what is one thing that you don't like about solo traveling?
The only things I ever remember about not liking solo travel is being in situations where they were just magical, absolutely magical, and yet not being able to share them. Yes, of course, there would have been people around I could have talked to, but sharing for me means sharing with a special person, not necessarily a boyfriend or a husband. It could be a special female friend or relative or parents or whoever, because the moment was so special And I was so excited, yet I didn't have that special person to relate it to at that very moment. You know, afterwards, of course, yes.
Yes, yeah, I think that
That's
is
the only, for me, that's the only, you know, vaguely negative side of things.
yes, yeah. And like anything in life, everything has got positive sides and negative sides. And what we want
Yeah.
to create is 90% positivity and, deal with that 10% negativity that just goes hand in hand. Without the negativity, we won't really know what positivity is, I think.
Yes. It's true, it's true.
Yeah. So I think for me, I agree with you. It doesn't have to be someone like a boyfriend or a husband to share this with. It can be anyone that is dear to heart, and you want to share that moment. So that's what is amazing now with today's day and age and the technology. You can be on on your little computer or internet and sharing that moment with someone. So as long as
Now, yes,
yeah,
but I started before all of this.
Yeah, I know. I have to admit, I was talking to one lady who said she was solo traveling before the time of internet and mobile phones. So that would have been a total different experience, obviously. So with all your traveling that you have done, what is one place you have been, or one experience you have had that have been like a life-changing moment or an aha moment, or kind of changed you for a better you? What would that be? I know in your case it's probably million and one. But
Oh, that's so hard, you know. I knew I was going to have that question, and I just I think meeting gorillas,
Okay.
and understanding how close we are, because I've done lots of safaris in Africa, South America, India, but an encounter with a gorilla is something quite unforgettable. But I've had so many, like, watching the sundown at the Taj Mahal, or being with a group of llamas, sitting with them and meditating on top of Machu Picchu, or seeing a cheetah hunt, or there's just been so many
Yeah.
special.
Absolutely. And that's the most amazing part of traveling, is that there's endless amount of magical experiences to have. And when people say to me, I go traveling all the time, and then their story is all about sitting in a resort and looking at the ocean, or their needs are swim up pool to a bar, I feel so sorry for them.
Oh, well, I didn't mention any of those things, because to me they're really not.
I know you have really given the true twist on what real travel should be. That life experiences, life-changing experiences, and those magical moments that we are to experience while we are on this planet Earth.
Oh, the other life-changing experience, because I was afraid of water, I had a phobia. And I learned to swim just before I went to the Galapagos Islands. And I went snorkeling in the sea for the first time at the Galapagos Islands. I mean, that is really amazing. It was like an aquarium getting into the water. For me, that was the first time I swam in the sea. So I expected all the seas after that to be the same, but they're not. With, baby sea lions coming to nip your fins, all different types of fish, even sharks, at a certain point, even penguins, because that part of the world has them. It was like being an aquarium. Absolutely. I've never seen so much animal life in the sea all together like that. And then I went on to diving after having had a phobia of the sea.
That's one way to face your phobias, isn't it? You just gotta go in and do it. I actually think I saw those videos of photos of you doing them. The other thing I really wanted to mention is I adored the outfit you were wearing when you were in India. What was that like, if you don't mind sharing, when you went to that wedding?
Oh, well, I bought these gorgeous saris, but oh, that was wonderful. You see, well, I'm used to Indian culture because my brother married an Indian girl, brought up in Kenya. So that's why I'd often go to Kenya to visit her family. And so I got used to the Indian way of life. And anyway, we had lots of people in the UK when I was at university. In fact, I had an Indian boyfriend. So I was very much used to the Indian culture. And my nephew got married in India. So that means my brother's son, whose mother is Indian, who my brother met in Kenya. So we had a traditional Hindu wedding with all the kind of preparation, like the mendi, when they paint your hands with henna, but the bride has her feet done as well. We had a wonderful time. I adored it. But I went to India 29 years ago on my 30th birthday. That's right. Wow. Solo.
No, that sounds exciting. I have to admit, I adored the photos you put on, and I just like this kind of connected with you in that sense that when you travel, you embrace the culture, you embrace the way you are at, and that's
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And that's a very important part of traveling, because a lot of times I see people do this. They go somewhere and they want to change where they have gone, that they want to change their way of doing things, where when you travel you should be able to go there and embrace yourself into all of everything they've got, the good and the bad, the rich and the poor, and their culture, their food, their language. And even if you don't understand it, it doesn't matter. The judgment part, when you take it out, isn't it so much fun to enjoy these cultures when you take the judgment out?
Absolutely. Well, I am in India. The food is amazing, and I'm very used to the culture, and I enjoyed wearing saris. I mean, it's the most elegant outfit you can possibly wear. You didn't see all the other ones I had. I bought this beautiful emerald green one with sequins and so on. It was just gorgeous. And yes, I mean, it was such fun becoming a part of all of that. And also the service in the hotels. They understand service in India. They're not servile, but they know service, which is something you don't really get in Europe.
I have to admit, every time I travel to Europe, comparing the services that we receive in Australia, I quite appreciate it in Europe. So it just depends on where you come from. And I know I'm not just talking about India, but I'm also like, I've been to Italy many times. I just totally fell in love with Italy. It was like love at first sight when I was in Rome. And the idea of, like, people do things differently. What I found with Italian people, it doesn't matter if you don't speak Italian. They want to help, embrace, they want to give, they want to, they want to make sure that you feel like Italian when you're there. So that's important to me as a traveler. And I think, that's one of the really important things that I love about, Italy, or visiting Italy. Whereas when you come to Australia, you don't really feel like Australian.
Well, because there's not one identity, maybe, that's why Australia being a place where lots of emigres went to.
Yes, absolutely. Now, my last question before we finish our beautiful chat is if someone is thinking of solo traveling for the very first time, what your advice would be for that person?
Well, I think if they don't feel confident enough, then the best thing is to go on a guided tour, because there are pockets of free time. So that means you can still be on your own, go off on your own. But ultimately, if you choose, you still have company, but you are still a solo traveler. And lots of women start off that way, because a solo traveler doesn't just mean, going off with a backpack and seeing where your heart takes you. It can also mean going on a scheduled holiday, booking on your own instead of waiting for friends, because nowadays it's very difficult to get the same amount of time off, have a friend who wants to see the same things. So you shouldn't let those things stop you. And the best thing to do, first of all, is to book a guided tour.
I absolutely agree. You know what? To be totally honest, my very first trip was a runaway to get away from the world. But after that, I figured out that if I want to really see something and be in the safety net of what you call experienced people, and yeah, that's an amazing advice. My very first tour was with Trafalgar, and I loved every little bit of it, and the advice, everything that's taken care of, and the safety net, and like you said, the extra time you get to do your own thing, test the waters,
Yeah.
how far can you push your limits, and how much can you do and how much you can't do. It's an amazing place to start. So thank you so much. I really appreciate
You're welcome. There's also a less expensive version and more free time than Trafalgar, which is Cost Saver.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's 3 different versions.
For solo travelers, it's really good, because then you can do a lot of stuff on your own, but you have like an umbrella.
Absolutely.
Of you.
Mm-hmm. And saying that, we might have to do a total book out on just hiring you for the next time to do whole of it. Now, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing
your story
and your wisdom. And I will look forward to seeing more stories from you in 2020. And definitely, thank you so much for sharing, and take care.
You're welcome. You take care. Thank you.